Take appropriate safety precautions before beginning installation. Consider your surroundings and wear the appropriate PPE. For this installation, you will require the following: RHS frames and support plates, a 240 volt welding set, a hand grinder, and we also recommend using these tools. Please note, it is preferable to install the glazing after the painting process has taken place. We're installing in an unpainted container for demonstration purposes only. First, make sure your container is perfectly level before beginning the install. Next, position the RHS frame next to the container where you're going to fit your door. Measure the RHS frame and mark the width on the container. Choose 2 points slightly in from where you've marked the edges of the frame and grind the paint off. This will allow for a clean weld when attaching the support plates. We recommend using the support plates to avoid having to hold the RHS frame up by hand. Next, weld the support plates onto the container and position the RHS frame. Draw a chalk line around the perimeter, keeping the aperture size as small as possible, leaving no more than a 2mm gap around the frame. If you draw this too big, you will struggle to weld the box section frame into the opening. Once this is complete, remove the frame and the support plates. This can be done by tapping them off with a mallet. Once you are happy with your aperture, you can then cut your hole with a hand grinder, taking the appropriate safety precautions. As you're coming to the end of cutting your aperture, we recommend somebody supporting the loose sheet of metal so that it can be pushed to fall away from you once complete, and then tidying up any rough edges or burrs. Once your aperture is cut, you can then position your RHS frame ready to be welded into place. Use tack welds to hold the frame in position for welding. Weld the frame into the aperture using the following measurements: a full weld across the top of the frame, a 100mm weld down each side, and a 25 to 30mm long stitch weld every 250 to 300mm for the remainder. Check the frame is square and plumb using a spirit level. Once this is done, you can then dress any cuts in the corrugation if needed. If a support bar is fitted in your RHS, it's no longer required and can be removed at this point and any rough edges smoothed off. The locking hardware is pre-installed in the door leaf. These doors are universally handed with symmetrical flush lever locks, so you can fit the door opening out to the left or the right without needing to change the hardware. You can test the locks with the keys supplied, which are hanging from the frame. Once happy with the locking system, starting with the bottom of the door and frame, make sure the door is centered and not leaning one way or the other. Test the door opening and closing to make sure it's plumb and not catching at any point. Check that an even gap is maintained all the way around the door leaf, and use packers if necessary to ensure this is right before attempting to fix the door in place. Packers can be used under the threshold of the door from the inside if required to raise or lower the frame on one side. Next, drill holes through the fixing points and rivet the frame in place, making sure it's properly centered. Check the closing of the door again and then rivet the top left and right corners of the frame. Now there are fixings holding the door in place, test the opening and closing of the door one last time. It's crucial at this stage to check that the door opens and closes freely without catching. If you need to adjust or manipulate the door frame, you will need to do it at this stage. The only part of the door that should touch the door frame is the door latch. You can now drill and rivet the rest of the frame. In our installations, we typically fit a rain deflector above the door that is fitted to the top of the RHS frame. To fit the rain deflector, measure the width required, mark and cut the rain deflector, and then position in place in line with the bottom of the flange. And then drill through to create fixing holes and pop rivet into place. Finish the door installation, seal all the way around the edge of the RHS frame, the door frame and the rain deflector at the top with silicone sealant. Container door installation is now complete. Shipping containers are typically fully wet sprayed using a single or 2-pack paint. Our shipping container doors are pre-finished in a thick polyester surf mist white powder coat. You can paint over the door and hinges, but only for one coat of paint. Once 2 or more coats are applied to the hinges and locks, they can become sticky and less reliable. If the paint is thick, we recommend masking the hinges and locks.